Welcome to the Evening Gamer. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Guy.
And double episode week 3, we're covering off the most exciting games to drop in 2024.
That we certainly are. We've both compiled a bit of a list, gone over a number of different websites and articles for what's coming out this year. Some of them are sort of TBD and I imagine may get pushed to 2025, but we're basing it on what we know so far.
Yeah, and this is a bit of a short list. There's a shit ton of games coming out this year, and it's a very exciting agenda for 2024, but we've really kind of... I'd suppose say we've kind of pulled it back to 4 or 5 titles with a couple of special mentions each, haven't we, Guy?
We certainly have, and I found it quite challenging. And I do find it interesting if every year you look ahead at the games coming out and you sort of go, this is going to be a big year. And then you get to the end of the year and you go, there was only really a handful I really liked.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's why there's only 4 or 5 on this list, mate.
Well, to be fair, I feel like I probably could have gone and maybe even to a top 10. But I have sort of cut it down to certainly 5 that I'm most excited for, and then sort of 4, 5, or 6 that are kind of special mentions.
Lovely. Well, let's just hop fucking right into this. So, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. Okay, so my number 5 of my top 5 list.
You're going down. Oh, you're going 5 to 1.
5 to 1. Hell
all
yeah.
Right,
we've got to keep some suspense.
Okay, yeah, I like that actually. Yeah, I'll quickly put mine in
reformat your list.
Little order here. I was going to do
from the bottom up.
I was going to do chronologically in terms of release date, but fuck it, you're making the rules. Let's do 5 to 1.
All right, number 5. Here we go. It is Hades 2.
Okay.
Hades 2, so sequel, Hades 1. Supergiant Games is the developer. Release date TBD. This is a roguelike. Hades 1 was a sort of 2020 game of the year. Really enjoyed it. Fantastic game. Sort of you build a character over a run. You're going down Hades, so it's very mythological. And it sort of had Diablo-esque kind of, but a lot faster. Really challenging fighting, and I got really addicted to the grind of it. Ran that game through numerous times. Really fun game. Hades 2, I imagine, of course, it's going to be more of the same, but as you know, sometimes with these games, more of the same is good, if it's good.
We just discussed more of the same in episode 3 or 4, so...
We did.
Yeah, lovely. If we're doing the 5 to 1, the Outlast trials.
The Outlast trials.
Yeah. So this is actually scheduled to drop on the 18th of May, 2024, obviously. It's by the developers Red Barrels. It's a psychological thriller set in the era of the Cold War and kind of following that storyline of human experimentation.
Okay.
So you're going to be, as a character, you're going to have to overcome all these obstacles in this test lab. You're going to have to escape the setting and kind of survive the whole storyline. Because it's really going to come back to how the character's put under pressure in terms of like you going through like being gassed and being electric shocked, like all of these kind of things that were happening around that time, especially in terms of like trying to diagnose mental health. It looks like such a fucking sick game. I've played a few of these. It's going to have you on the edge of your seat. 18th of May, the Outlast trials. That's my number 5, mate.
All right, I sort of didn't even come across that one in my search, so I'm curious to. I'll have a look at that trailer afterwards. My number 4 is Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl. Now, this one's a first-person shooter. Release date expected in Q1, I believe. It's been delayed numerous times. Of course, Russia invaded the Ukraine, and the developers were in the Ukraine, so some of the people who worked on this game went off to fight in the war. But I believe it's being released this year. And I played the first one back in the day, and talking in our last podcast of games that freaked us out, that was a game that freaked me out when I played it. I sort of remember these rolling hills where you see sort of distortions, you know, in sort of the off in the distance. That's just like if you walk into it, it'll rip your body apart and shit like that. So it's set in Chernobyl in a fallout zone, and of course it's a lot more of a fantastical kind of fallout zone than you know what obviously is in reality of just a high Geiger count or whatever it is. But it looks creepy as hell. The trailer for it looks fantastic. First person shooter, really sort of tight gunplay. I think it's going to be a big one. I think it's going to be a good one. Nice
one. My number 4, I actually think one of my special mentions is one of these. So I actually don't have 5 full ones, but I'm going to keep going on this sort of 5 to 1 system that you got going. Black Myth Wukong.
Black Myth Wulong. Yes.
Wukong.
Sorry.
Wukong. Set for August 30th by the Chinese developers Science.
This was on my special mention,
Game
so I'm
Science.
glad that you're bringing it up.
It's on your
because I
special
think it is a good one.
There you go. Game Science. Very, very similar to Wolong Fallen Destiny from
There
what
you
I
go.
saw,
Okay, yeah.
which kind of concerns me a little bit. Wolong for me was a middling game. It was very mash and bash. You got way too much loot. It was very hard to keep track of things. It was quite linear. The storyline wasn't super grabbing, but this still looks to have promise. Really good, complex combat systems, and I think different weapons. And it looks like the lore and the storyline of the main protagonist looks to be a little bit more polished. So,
Okay.
Black Myth Wukong, August 30th. Looking forward to that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was on my special mentions. I'm interested in that title. I think that sort of flows on nicely to my number 3 on my top 5 list, which is Rise of the Ronin. Release date March 22, developed by Team Ninja, who did do Wolong, I believe.
There you go.
And it's sort of an open world, samurai-looking thing, kind of very Ghost of Tsushima. Pronunciation
Which
correct.
we're saying correctly now, yeah.
And like the trailer for it looks really cool. I'm excited for it. I really enjoyed Ghost of Tsushima, and I kind of see it's in that vein, but probably a little bit more hard fighting style and sort of quick pace than maybe what Ghost of Tsushima was with its sort of combat styles. So I'm curious on it. It's sort of in my list.
Is that RPG open world?
Yes.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, looking forward to that. I actually wasn't aware of that. Number 3 for me. Did you play Senua's Sacrifice?
I didn't. I know you've
didn't.
talked about it a lot. It was on my list. It's still on my list. One day I will do it. I know the sequel's coming out, and I imagine that's on your list.
Dear listeners, this is an ongoing struggle of mine. Suggesting games to Guy that he never fucking plays. Add that to the list because it's a long list.
When
Anyway,
was the last time you recommended me a game and I played it? Where was the last time?
I don't think it's ever happened, to be honest.
I reckon it's happened.
I recommended, what was the Loop game? Deathloop. I recommended Deathloop to you 5 times. I even played it in its entirety, and every time I come over to your house, I can see it sitting there on your shelf, ready for PS5 consumption.
It's collecting dust.
You still haven't done it yet. Good game. So anyway,
I'm
that
sorry.
list.
I reckon the last game I played you recommended was Elden Ring. I think that was you raved about that one. So that's a good one.
At least I've got a 10 out of 10 game on there. Yeah, sure.
Go.
Well, given my track record, you should fucking listen to me more. Anyway, Senua's is the direct sequel. So Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2, right? Big clue into the fact it's a sequel from Senua's Sacrifice, Hellblade 1, which was a third-person RPG. You play as Senua. She's kind of chasing after her life partner who's been pulled into the darkness, and that was a fantastic game. Really took me by surprise. It was kind of one of those games where I didn't have a game at the time, and I was like, what am I going to play? Saw that Senua's Sacrifice had come out a couple of years before. It had decent reviews. Loved it. Combat system is fucking fantastic. The lore, the storyline, you were engrossed in the environment, and the graphics were pretty good. Release date for Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 is the 21st of May, so really it's just around the corner. Obviously, being a sequel, it's still going to be developed has been developed and will be released by Ninja Theory. You'll be kind of going through a different, I suppose, environment called the Viking Iceland, where, that community has fallen victim to the darkness that was ever present in Hellblade 1. And apparently they're going down a much deeper path with her backstory, her ever deteriorating mental state, because that played a huge part in her character development in the first one. And it just left me kind of wanting more from this franchise, and to hear that this game's coming out and they're spending the time that they need on it, really, really excited for that one. 21st of May. Yeah.
Nice. And that's number 3 on your list, I think?
That's number 3 on my list, yeah.
Number 3. Nice. I will one day play the first one. I mean, it is got rave reviews, and it deserves some time, so I will get to it. But my goodness, my list of games to play is an ever-expanding one. So going to my number 2 game on the sort of our countdown here is Star Wars Outlaws. So this is developed by Massive Entertainment, which I believe is under the Ubisoft umbrella. They're known for doing The Division 1 and 2, which I really enjoyed. Having been to, DC and New York, sort of walking those streets. It is always something special where a game is set in a place that you've actually visited.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I really enjoy that. I sort of even remember in Fallout, they did some sort of the DC train network, and I remember being down there and going, geez, they've really recreated this quite nicely. You sort of feel quite connected to the environment. But yeah, Star Wars Outlaws, so TBD on release date, open world. It's a lot less of the sort of Jedi-Sith struggle, I believe, and a little bit more of the sort of Han Solo rogue style kind of thing based on the trailer and what we've heard so far. But, I think we've talked about before this game specifically, but more just the concept of moving away from, this Jedi Survivor.
I'm hoping with this game that they kind of learn from Jedi Survivor, because we didn't have the most amazing reviews for that. And sometimes I feel like these gaming companies, they bring out a middling game between developing the bigger ones. You know what I mean? Like, next on my list is Assassin's Creed Red, which, is hugely anticipated. But we obviously had Assassin's Creed Mirage that kind of came in between Valhalla, and Mirage just didn't really scratch the itch for everyone. I think maybe that's what Jedi Survivor was before this next game's release as well. Kind of something for people to wiggle their thumbs on that really wasn't the end game. Do you feel that sometimes?
I know what you mean, but I think it's different developers, and I think there is Lucas Arts is sort of an overarching looking at, sort of their content being developed and put out there. If they're sort of sourcing their licenses to different developers of sort of, Apex, the guys who did that, Respawn, and also this Ubisoft Massive Entertainment one, I don't know if it is sort of, here's a bite-sized one. An Assassin's Creed, I know there's sort of a number of Assassin's Creed coming out, but I'm not sure if it's same developers each time.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, righto.
It's sort of the same umbrella corporation, but then it'll be like, right, this, Black Flag's coming out of, I don't know, Norway's Ubisoft studio, and then, the next Assassin's Creed's coming out of one based out of Germany or something like that.
They got lots of dev teams. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So are we up to your number 2?
Yeah, well, my number 2 is Assassin's Creed Red, which is something that I've been looking forward to quite a lot. Played all of the Assassin's Creed 1, 2, with Ezio and Altair, and was super hooked on that franchise. And then they kind of lost their way, picked it back up again with Valhalla, which was pretty good. Mirage has been okay, but not groundbreaking. But this one actually goes back to their kind of roots of, they've got Mark Alexis back on the job, who's one of the main developers that's been behind all of the most successful Assassin's Creeds. So to hear that he's been back on the production side of things is really exciting. It's an RPG open world, obviously. So open. They said it's one of their most anticipated kind of settings ever. Ancient Japan, obviously, there's so much information around that era, with the samurais and the shinobis, and they're kind of really trying to get it right. But they've actually rerouted resources into this game from other projects.
Interesting.
That's how kind of demanding this game has been for them. So that tells me that they're doing it right. They're doing it well. And I think that this is going to be a big game. Its premiere trailer is set to come out in May. The actual release date is TBD, but they have promised 2024. So really looking forward to that one.
Interesting. I wonder if it's going to pull me back to the Assassin's Creed games, because after Valhalla, I sort of lost touch with them, fell out of love with them. Haven't played that most recent one that was sort of, was I think supposed to be a DLC, and then they released it as a sort of a fully fledged game.
Yeah.
And was kind of quite the watered back, sort of back to basics kind of Assassin's Creed. And, I heard it was pretty good, but I didn't sort of wow me to make me pick it back up.
Yeah, exactly.
So my number 1 game on the top 5 list, and this one's, I sort of, when I was putting the list together, I was, sort of asking myself, which game am I most excited for, answering the question of this sort of, episode we're doing or whatever it is. And this one continued to sort of outbeat the other entries, and it's Dragon's Dogma 2.
Yeah, you showed me the trailer and it looks pretty good.
It does, doesn't it? I sort of, I don't know, I don't think I've ever played Dragon's Dogma 1. I'm half tempted to go and have a look at that and go, is it worth my time? Is it sort of, should I play that before I play this? But so release date, March 22. It's developed by Capcom, action adventure. It kind of has elements of Skyrim or Elden Ring-esque, open world, dragons, fantasy. And the combat in that trailer just, I don't know. I think sometimes Capcom just knock it out of the park a little bit, and their games are pretty good. They're sort of arcadey, but this looks like a real polished, nice game.
It did, and sometimes I find that funny with these trailers of these games is like, because that there was some gameplay in that trailer.
There was, yeah.
And they were fucking shredding. Like the players looked like they were real powerful, and we know historically that a more accurate representation of these games would be just watching you get flogged most of the time until you kind of grind away at the
I thought you were
upgrades.
going to go in a different direction with that statement of more like, they send you these, the trailers get put out, you watch them, and then they kind of, the game gets released and they do a bloody cyberpunk on us, and you're like, wait a fucking minute here.
A cyberpunk would love that analogy.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, they know what they did.
They do know what they did.
Skivey bastards.
But yeah, that did look really polished and kind of very similar to a lot of the other games that we're excited about in terms of the close combat, the different build sets. It was very obvious that there's mage abilities as well as melee, and the enemies looked really exciting.
Yeah, I've watched a developer or sort of an early review thing about it, some dude talking about it, and he was like, I came across like a little kid, and he was like, can you save my dad? Went off into the sort of highlands to try and find his kid's father. Ended up going on multiple quests on the way there, fought a bunch of monsters. Some of the fights went on for, 45 an hour long, beating a goddamn dragon or something. And then finally he came across the kid's dad, saved him. There was a twist in the tale. And this person was just really positively going like it was a lot of fun playing that game.
Yeah, nice. You love to hear it.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, these games, who knows, the release dates get moved, things like that. I mean, some of them are definitely set in. Dragon's Dogma 2, I think, is definitely a lock. Some of the other ones, who knows if they push that. Rise of Ronin. I feel like when they give a release date, you're pretty confident they'll land on that. They have to sort of settle their marketing up. It's, unlikely they push it, but it has been known to have happened. Stalker 2, I'm a bit worried about that one. I mean, if Russia fucking goes nuclear on Ukraine, we may not see that the later day.
Oh God, let's keep this gaming and not politics.
Well, they didn't say it was the heart of Chernobyl,
True. My number one actually isn't a game itself per se. I was going to do this as a special mention, but it's Shadow of the Erdtree, the Elden Ring DLC, and the reason why I've decided to do it is kind of, it's kind of a game that I'm super excited about is because it looks like it might be an entirely new game.
It's got that vibe about it, yeah.
It looks like it's going to be DLC that is like almost a complete run-through of Elden Ring. You're following in the footsteps of Miquella. You're in a new place called the Land of the Shadow. Watching the trailer, I think in the trailer I counted at least 10 new big bosses that looked like they covered a lot of surface area. And the reason why I mention that is because that doesn't speak side boss to me or optional boss. Anything that looks like it has a phase 2 in a trailer looks to me to be a main boss, and I counted at least 5 to 10. And the entire new setting looked huge.
Yeah.
So not a new game coming out, but Shadow of the Erdtree, look, there's not too much we know about it. The initial release was June 21st, 2024. And yeah, I think that when I think about 2024 from a gaming agenda perspective, Shadow of the Erdtree just has to be number one for me. And just watching that trailer, the nostalgia was there. And I think that all these other games that we've mentioned are just trying to put out something that's going to fucking compete with that.
I mean, any that are in that realm of the Dark Souls style that they've just cornered the market, is certainly attempting to bridge the divide that company has set the standard for. And this DLC, I'm excited for it. I'm keen to dive back into that world and see how hard some of these bosses are and how difficult they make it. I'm keen for it. We'll see if we can actually learn how to fucking block in this,
and we'll see if we can actually do co-op successfully, because I know that was a bit of a dick around.
I did hear that in
Ring.
the DLC that they're going to try to make. I hope I've got this right. But remember with Elden Ring, it was like only certain areas could you call people into. You'd be capped at a certain
you couldn't do
and stuff.
Essentially, you couldn't do the whole story together. It was
sections. Whereas in this one, I believe it is continuously.
Yeah, they'd essentially put a perimeter around you where you could grind it together. But yeah, hopefully this one's a bit more centered around the co-op element of it.
Yeah. So should we do our special mentions?
I'm out, mate. So,
you're done.
Well,
okay,
I tried to focus solely on across all platforms games. So, not having a PS5, I didn't venture down that space. So it makes sense that you have a lot more special mentions than I do. But I'm keen to hear the titles, and I'll definitely have some questions.
I basically just sort of went through, the list of it all and pulled out the ones that I was most keen for. So I'm sort of going, again, maybe a bit of a sort of a 5 to 0 of what I'm most interested in. So there's one called Replaced, and it's a TBD on this one. It's a pixel art cyberpunk platformer. And the trailer for that looks kind of cool. I'm not a big sort of side-scrolling platformer kind of player, but I like cyberpunk kind of worlds, and that kind of art style and music, is kind of my jam. So I'm keen to dip my toe into this one. We'll see if it's good, but that's why it's a special mention. Warhammer Space Marine 2 we talked about in a previous podcast. Certainly a special mention, Gears of War 2, but in that universe, I think that will be a pretty tasty game.
What's the release date for that again?
I don't know if they've come
Is
out
it
with one. I
TBD?
think it's a TBD,
Because you've talked me into playing that game, and if you haven't listened to that episode, I think that was actually episode 2.
Yes.
Go back and listen to it, because that could be a franchise that really hits the ground running again.
Yeah, as I said, I think it could make its mark on pop culture this year. Next one is one called Nightingale. Now, this one, some trailers dropped for it, and it really blew up sort of some of the gaming Reddits and, sort of articles and things like that. So this is a PC game coming out Feb 20 or early access Feb 20. And it looks pretty cool. It's developed by a bunch of BioWare veterans. And I think it looks cool. Like, if you haven't seen the trailer for it, I'll have to show it to you afterwards. But really cool world building. There was elements of it that kind of reminded me of Remnant 2 a little bit, with sort of its shooting and over the shoulder kind of style. But then there's world building, base building.
Anything with base building, I'm like, fuck yeah! If I can make a little clubhouse for myself and have all my shit there, I'll play it just for that.
Well, mate, I mean, that one could be up your alley. I think that one could be good. Next, I've got one called Avowed. And this one, again, release date TBD. This is done by Obsidian, so it's in the sort of developer of Fallout New Vegas, Skyrim-esque, and The Outer Wilds. And I believe The Outer Wilds 2 is another one coming out soon. But this one looks pretty special. I think it kind of looks a little bit like Skyrim. The fighting looks pretty cool. The trailer was all right. I'm interested. I did play The Outer Wilds, which was, we often get confused, you and I think, with the names of the...
Yeah, are you meaning to say Outer Worlds?
Maybe I am.
I think you are, because Outer Wilds is my game that's
right.
Added to the list of things Scott hasn't fucking played. Outer Wilds is the puzzle
the
adventure.
Outer Worlds, yes.
Loop
game. I stand corrected. Apologies. I made
doing
the error that I was just about talking about.
We're just doing correct me if I'm wrong in episode.
In episode, I like that. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, again, TBD on the release date. First-person shooter, action-adventure. Same developer who did Wolfenstein, Machine Games. Trailer for that looks pretty cool. I like Indiana Jones. I think it's going to be sort of a Tomb Raider sort of vibe about it. I mean,
it has to be, because that's their base. That's what they are. They're both treasure hunters, right?
Treasure hunters, exactly. But the art style looks really on the brand of the old style movies. I believe it's set in between two of the movies, and I think it looks pretty cool. I'm half interested on that one.
It's nice.
And then the last one on my list, I sort of said I'd go on a 0 to 5, and I kind of didn't bother with that. Pacific Drive, and this one has just dropped not that long ago. And it's done by Ironwood Studios, and it's a survival adventure game, and it's got really favorable reviews so far. You're sort of a first person, and you drive a car through a post-apocalyptic world, and you're sort of scavenging for resources to keep your car going. And I think it looks pretty cool. I'm sort of keeping an eye out on it and see if the reviews continue to be glowing for it, and if it's worth the time.
Do you like scavenger games?
I do, to an extent.
Do you think sometimes they're a bit back and forth?
Yes.
Like, it's kind of like, you're like, I have everything I need. And then you go and try and build the thing that you need. And it's like, you don't have everything you need. And then you're back again in the same area. And then you go back and you're like, I've got everything I need now. It's like, no, you don't.
Yeah. My patience runs a little bit thin. I mean, we both played that underwater one. What was that one called?
Subnautica. Great fucking game.
And I really enjoyed that one. But then I got to a certain point where I'm building this giant underwater thing. And you're building locker on locker on locker on locker just to fill it with all this shit that you never know if you're going to need or not. And you just eventually go, like, why do I play games? Do I play games to accumulate resources for a thing in a virtual world that I'll never touch again? No, I play it for a fucking good story. And the story of Subnautica had me interested. Yeah. But then at a certain point you get to, like, okay, if you want to go down deeper levels, you have to scavenge to such a fucking level.
That's what they're all about.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's just they've got to get the pacing right. And if they get it wrong, you lose players.
So I've always said that, like, with scavenger games, have some sort of fast travel back to your hub. Like, not out to the POIs, the points of interest, fine, where all the rare materials are. But I've always said that why not have a fast travel back to your home base? Yeah, bring in some rules that you can't use if you're about to die because you haven't eaten or drunk or anything like that. But Because the back and forth, I agree with you, and then you die because you haven't eaten anything.
Exactly.
Like,
Well,
fuck this, I'm
get
out.
hit by a shark. But I mean, there's a lot of developers out there who often talk about fast travel is lazy gaming.
Yeah,
And
I get that.
They give huge criticism on it because it's like, you know, as we've talked about before, the journey is the story. So I understand that part about it, but if you're resource gathering to such extent where you got to make multiple trips and you're just like, this is a chore, you know, like I'm like putting the washing out, going down 4 times because I only carry 4 items at a time. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. That's always that. I think that's the struggle with these games.
Yeah,
that they often have, but not to get too deep on it. But yeah, I just thought I'd ask that.
No, fair. It's a good question. But yeah, so there is obviously a lot of games coming out this year that we're pretty excited for, and I feel like I've really got to get gaming to start knocking some of these down. And as sort of I mentioned previously, I've pied off Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm going to hit Helldivers 2 pretty fucking hard. And I'm hoping that when the next time we record, I'm going to review that game. And I know I'm going to review it probably favorably because it looks sick.
Yeah, maybe we should stop recording podcasts and get back to gaming.
Yeah, this is taking up too much time. This is my gaming time. I'm bloody doing this podcast.
Nah, we're good. Perfect. Any other special mentions?
No, I've run through my list. I mean, you know, there was plenty that were talked about and has sort of been announced, but we don't know when it's going to drop. So this is, as of right now, what we are most keen for this year.
Yeah, kind of like a keep your eyes peeled, ear to the floor around these titles. We realised that was a lot as well. What we're going to do is put all of the mentions in the episode notes.
Yep.
We might even link the trailers as well. So
if
any of these games kind of piqued your interest, perked up your ears, go to the show notes, click on it, have a look, see if you're going to like it. And if you're excited for one, you can always email at us.
Yeah. Let us know. Did we miss anything? You know, was there any big titles that you're really excited for that we've missed?
Yeah, even a niche game that you're into. info@theeveninggamer.com.au. As always, don't be a fucking NPC.
And level the fuck up.
Thanks for listening.